All right, so I just left my house, and basically I want to give you these tips because I've been driving on the road for 10 years now, and I've had this 350Z for about half of all of my driving experience. I've had it for about 5 years. Now, this is not a low profile car whatsoever, especially when you get some modifications, you know, such as an exhaust, the fact that it's a sports car, just a bunch of different things. But my first tip is definitely gonna be simply don't drive like an asshole, okay? Now, when you get out on the road, the first thing is you need to respect the drive, okay? If you're not respecting the drive, then you're just pretty much asking for it, okay? Now, there's people out here, AKA the police, that are looking for people like you that are driving in such a manner that is reckless or disruptive to like regular traffic flow, okay? So if you're out here driving like an asshole, that's gonna be the #1 thing that they're gonna try and get you for. If you wanna not get pulled over by the police, you gotta know when to pick your battles, and wanna know when you can pick your battles, as well as when it is appropriate for you to, you know, have some fun. One thing I want to show you is, you see how there's 2 sides of guardrails here? That basically means that as long as you have 2 guardrails on either side in sight, there isn't going to be a cop hiding on one side of the road where they normally hide at to get you on radar. Obviously the guardrails ended here, but I have very clear line of sight of the road. And you know, you don't want to ever like break the speed limit like crazy. I mean, for here in Massachusetts, you know, the speed limit's 55 on most roads on the highway. Most people don't drive that fast. It kind of turns into a big trap because even the police drive this fast. But you see how there's 2 guardrails here? I could go as fast as I want in theory, and I know that there isn't going to be a cop on either side hiding out. And if they are on the side, they're probably on the other side of the highway, and in that case, they're no good for me anyway. Double guardrails is a good indication of when you can go and have some fun. And yeah, let's move on to the next point. Something you always got to be cautious of is definitely in front of you and behind you, because you never know if there's going to be a cop creeping up behind you going a little bit faster than you are, or even up ahead. You never know, because as you guys might know or may not know, that cops, whenever they're running radar, they have access to your speed from the back and the front. Let's get off here. It was a little too early for a second there, but that's okay. Another thing I'd like to touch on here is, if you happen to get a radar detector, know that these are not 100% for you to rely on. They're just a tool for you to use for your awareness. They don't tell you where cops are. They don't tell you where cops are hiding out. There's a cop right here. If a cop's running radar that isn't LiDAR, because these radar detectors don't pick up on LiDAR. So as long as they're running a radar that's throwing out Ka bands, you will be able to detect their radar detector, or their signals emitting from their radar detector with your radar detector. Sorry, that was like a mouthful. This thing right here is meant to be a tool. It is not something to completely rely on. Big places that you definitely don't ever want to speed on, even though the road might look like it would be a lot of fun. Like for instance, this road, I used to have a lot of fun on it back in the day when I was a little bit younger, but the speed limit on this road is only 25 miles an hour. So guys, if you're gonna have fun, you're gonna be going faster than 25 miles an hour, and that's just a given. So you need to be paying attention to what roads you're gonna be going fast on, or trying to drive more spirited on, because like, look at this guy. This guy was in the middle of the road, and if I was coming around that corner going like 60, he'd be in the middle of the road. I should have just honked at him, but I'm making a video right now. You don't want to speed in residential areas, because you never know if there's going to be kids, dogs, other idiots like that guy who just want to sit in the middle of the road. You just never know, and you don't ever want to be at fault for a felony. you know, for killing somebody or for hurting someone or doing damage to someone else's property. It's about knowing the roads that you're gonna have fun on. For instance, another tip I would say is don't speed or do anything spirited or reckless in your own hometown, because the cops, they get a gist, they patrol and they know who's acting out and they know who's not doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, and they take note of that. You know, I've never even gotten a speeding ticket. I have been profiled before in another state for someone else that was speeding, and I actually received a reckless driving citation where I had to go back to the state of Maine, and I would have had to go to court, and I would have had to, you know, plead my case and all that. All in all, I was not actually street racing. I wasn't racing. I wasn't even speeding. I was just in a group with 5 guys and we all had loud cars, and someone called it in a residential area, and the cop just decided that he wanted to single all of us out and cut to conclusions and act like he knew what he was talking about. I will play the clip right now of when that actually went down. I think it was like March 21st, 2020. So yeah, we'll roll that clip right now and I'll show you exactly how the cop spoke to me, not knowing anything of the situation. So here's that clip now, and hope you enjoy. All
right, here's your registration, bud. You're not getting arrested or anything, so don't worry about that, okay?
Yep.
All right. I am summoning you for driving to endanger, okay? It's a Class E crime. It's a misdemeanor, dude, okay? It's not a big deal, all right?
Yeah.
Show up to court, okay? If you don't show up to court, you will have a warrant, though, okay? Because it's a Class E crime.
Do I have to come back to Maine?
You do have to come back to Maine, okay? It's going to be York. It's the next town up. It's right up the road, okay?
Yeah.
You just get off the exit in York, okay? Your court date is right here, 7/6 of this year at 8:15 a.m., okay?
Yeah.
Should be a Tuesday or a Friday, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's driving to endanger because what I saw was you guys racing, okay? You guys pulled away from your buddy. I was doing 60 trying to catch you, okay?
Yeah.
There's no way I caught up to your buddy who was doing probably 10 over.
You talking about him?
No, the white Volkswagen.
Okay.
He was doing probably 10 over, okay? And you guys took off, okay? You guys were already gone from where your buddy was, all right? So what I saw was street racing, okay? You can fight it in court. Doesn't matter to me, okay? You get your court date, you can plead it to the judge, whatever, all right?
So yeah, as you guys can see, he's saying that he saw street racing, which is absurd because I was never even street racing. I wouldn't speed in an area that was completely foreign to me. And I was in the state of Maine, and I obviously don't know those roads. I don't live in Maine. I don't go to Maine often. I was just simply going for a cruise with my friends. None of my friends either were even speeding. We weren't doing anything wrong. He just really, like, he was a younger cop. He must have had something that he wanted to prove, and he wanted to bust down on, you know, some kids that he thought were street racing. So, I mean, you gotta be careful, especially if you have a high profile car. You know, really, it's not even about what you drive. It's about, like, if you've got a loud exhaust, like mine, then you're automatically high profile. You are looked at as a person that has a modified car. You must speed, or you must be doing something wrong. So they catch on to your suspicion. Not that having a loud car is suspicious, but to them, you know, you're just not that regular stock Honda Civic that a mom is driving. You're a guy in a loud car. That's just kind of what I've collected over the years is if you drive a high profile car, you need to be careful. You need to keep the revs down, and you can't just be all loud and obnoxious all the time. I would rather explain to you guys that you just gotta be more careful. There's certain tools, like I've said, like the radar detector and the double guardrails when you're on certain roads or the highway or following the speed limit, as simple as that. Other tools like Waze, I don't even use Waze. I actually use Apple Maps, but Waze is another great tool for you to kind of monitor where the cops are for you to make your best judgment on, you know, what you want to do or how you want to do things. You know, you never know where these cops could be hiding out. And listen, like, it's nothing personal. It's just that they have a job to do, and to them, doing their job is issuing you a citation for something that you did to earn the citation. Another really, really big point that I do want to touch on, though, is if you do happen to get pulled over by the police, keep in mind exactly like what you're doing, okay? So if you get pulled over by the police for, let's say, something simple. Let's say you get pulled over by the police because you ran, or you stopped a little too late at a stop sign, or something like stupid like that, and you get pulled over. They have full means to pull you over, okay? But something so simple like that, Most of the time, cops just want to have a conversation with you, and they want to see where your head's at, and they want to see if you're going to be honest. Because a citation like that is so easily forgiven with a warning in their eyes. So if you get pulled over and for like running a stop sign or something, like pull over immediately, especially if you see them. Just pull over immediately. Just pull over immediately, wait for them to come talk to you, and just be like, hey, yeah, I think I just wasn't like, you don't have to like incriminate yourself, but just be like, yeah, I honestly ran that stop sign, sir. It was a total accident. I never typically do any of that. And then also, if you have a clean record, it helps to just mention, like, listen, I've never gotten a ticket before in my life. I've usually been a great driver. It's just, every now and then people make mistakes, but this is kind of like a first time thing for me. And the reason why I'm telling you this and using this situation is because this actually happened to me. This happened to me about, I want to say 3 years after I got my license. I got pulled over, I was following a buddy, and I honestly blew straight through a stop sign. And it was a complete accident. I was definitely more fixated and distracted with my friend in front of me. And the cop pulled me over. He was sitting with his lights off. He knew people were running that stop sign. And I basically just told him, I was like, yeah, it was a complete accident, man. Like, I totally understand, like, the circumstance of the situation, and I definitely am very sorry for doing that. And all I can say is I will try my best in the future to never do it again. The thing about when you get pulled over by the cops, okay, is yes, they have a job to do, but the biggest thing that you could do in your defense is to play the emotional game, okay? Cops want to see if you're gonna be a dick when they pull you over, and they, let's say you were going, 10 over the speed limit. As stupid as that sounds for you to get pulled over, and as frustrating it is, because who doesn't go 10 over sometimes? Listen, you just gotta play the emotional game. You just need to be nice and respectful, because if you come off being, kind of mean or just being a dick, like, they're not gonna be lenient with you. They're not gonna try and help you. That's not gonna be their best interest. Their best interest is going to be, okay, this guy's being a dick to me, and he did something wrong, and I just happen to have a job to do. What do you think they're gonna do with that, okay? But if you are a nice, stand-up individual and you own up to what you have to say, and I'm not trying to say that you need to incriminate yourself. Obviously, the situation kind of develops into other things if the citation that you got pulled over for is a little bit higher of a circumstance. Like if you're a super speeder, man, like if you're going 100 plus, over the speed limit or in a posted zone or whatever, you guys know what I'm talking about. Cops are gonna be a little bit less lenient. They could technically arrest you in the state of Massachusetts. So, especially from a Massachusetts state trooper, they don't play around here, especially when they get you. But as soon as you're respectful, nice, you tell them what's up, you're a little honest with yourself, you're not afraid to take a little bit of accountability. Yes, I'm not gonna lie, there's cops out there that are just completely out for blood. They don't care what your attitude is, they don't care about your situation, they're just there to write you a ticket. That's that. But like, listen, if you can get on a good foot with the officer where he kinda can feel for you a little bit or like you, or you can get him to laugh in any way, that is going to be huge brownie points for you, okay? And I'm only speaking out of all of this information based off of my own experience of being on the road, driving for 10 years with 0 citations to my name, excluding 1 parking ticket. That is probably my biggest tip, is definitely try to get to some sort of respectful interaction with the officer, and don't just skip to conclusion and assume you're getting a ticket and do the whole roll your window down 3 inches and say what's your name and badge number, become a sovereign citizen weirdo and stuff like that. You don't want to do that, okay? Because they're just going to press every single option that they have to try and extinguish, to try and get you to be cited for something, because they simply don't like you and they don't like your attitude. That is my biggest tip. My next tip is gonna be this. Take a sip of coffee real quick. So my next biggest tip is gonna be, guys, you gotta make sure that your vehicle is all up to par in terms of its legality requirements, okay? What that meaning is, if your state requires a state inspection sticker, you gotta get that done. If you got a headlight out or a turn signal out, you gotta get that done. Let's turn in here and drink some more coffee and chill. chill by the water and just hang out. You live in a state that requires like emissions and stuff like that, like California, I know is really big on that. Guys, like, you gotta have a legal car, okay? If you don't wanna be bothered by the police, you gotta have a legal car. You gotta have everything in working order. You gotta have an active registration. More coffee. You got to have a proof of insurance, okay? You have to have some form of proof of insurance. Now, in the state of Massachusetts, I don't believe that you actually need to have proof of insurance, but it's still good to just have with you. You know, whatever strategy I have been implementing with my driving habits has worked for me, and I feel like it will work for any of you that happen to watch this video. One more thing too about the driving requirements in your state. Now, I don't know too much about tint laws, but what I can speak about is Massachusetts, and in the state of Massachusetts, you're allowed to have window tint, okay? My window's open, but you're allowed to have window tint up to 35%. If you go below any of that, cops will have, you know, reasonable suspicion to pull you over, okay? Because that is a driving offense. You can't have windows that are tinted below 35%. That's the law in Massachusetts. Now, personally, when I had my last car, I had 20% tint all around and 5 in the back. I never got stopped, ever, not one time, okay? Now, some cops, and this is all I'm saying, is some cops will look for that little kind of stuff. They will look for the blinker out. They will look for you not using your blinker. They will look for inspection stickers. They will look for speeders. They will look for people that have dark tinted windows, okay? Because when they come up to a traffic stop, it makes them feel unsafe and stuff like that. Now, if you want to have darker tint, I'm pretty sure that you need to have a prescription of some sort, like, you know, bright lights bother you or something like that. I don't know. But, so it's really, really important to just make sure that if you want to go out and have fun in your car and you don't want to be paranoid about driving with the police in the back of your mind that are going to come and pull you over and try to get you for something, the biggest thing is before you even go out driving is you need to make sure that your car is up to par legally 100%. If you're weaving in and out of traffic, you know, simple things like you're not using your blinker, that term swimming that's on YouTube, you know, don't be swimming through the highway, okay? Only idiots do that. And the only people that are really doing that are people that are either trying to risk their life or put others in danger. Don't drive like an asshole, simply, just like that. If you get on the road and you're not respecting the drive, you're only gonna be causing unnecessary attention to yourself. Now, of course, you don't wanna be driving in which a way of where you're, one, breaking the speed limit, two, endangering others or yourself. The next biggest thing I'm gonna say is your gadgets. If you happen to have gadgets, like as you can see, I have a radar detector here, and sometimes I use Waze, sometimes I don't. But if you rely on your gadgets, you're gonna get busted. I know people that have these gadgets, such as a radar detector and Waze and all these other cool things. They're not there to do the work for you. They're not there to tell you where the cops are or to tell you when you're about to get pulled over. They are just a small little safety net for you to be more aware on the road. Now, I've had friends that have gotten more speeding tickets from having a radar detector than not having one. Why is that? Because they rely way too heavily on their gadgets, okay? Again, a cop isn't, like, not all cops are gonna be picked up on this radar detector. It's only gonna be cops that are running, you know, older radar detectors or cruisers that are just running KA bands or older municipal cops, like, that are in the area. You need to respect the drive, and you can't rely heavily on your gadgets. That's my biggest tip for tip number 2, because you never know when there's gonna be a cop hiding. Like, for instance, if you don't know the area, you wouldn't know that a cop sits in this cemetery sometimes. So if you get caught, the speed limit on this road is 30 miles an hour. If you're going 40 in this road, you're definitely gonna get pulled over, and your attitude depicting that traffic stop is going to distinguish whether or not the cop decides to ruin your day or not. They are there to do their job. Okay, it's nothing personal if they pull you over, for the most part. You don't want to rely too much on your gadgets. Relying too much on your gadgets is almost asking to get pulled over, because you're now, like, revoking your own awareness and your own care for your own awareness. You're relying on these devices to try and tell you where they are at. when simply that's just not the case. The radar detector is only there to tell you when the cop is running an older radar that is emitting Ka bands to or front and back of their cruiser, okay? Now on the highway, a lot of the time, these state troopers are not running Ka bands. They're running either a LiDAR or they're running laser. And yes, this does pick up a laser detection. If they're hitting you with laser, they already know how fast you're going. You really, really don't want to give them a reason. As soon as you give them a reason, it's like, boom, they got you. They can do really whatever they want to you in the moment. They are legally detaining you. Certain citations that you may receive, they will stick with you for a very long time, and that will negatively affect your car insurance and how much money you pay every single year to maintain driving on the road. Because remember, driving on the road is a privilege, it's not a right. So you have to maintain your diligence on the road and your respect for the road, and obviously respect for law enforcement and stuff like that. You need to understand that these people, when they pull you over, they are there to get money from you to give to the state. What I'm trying to say really is you just need to have respect for the drive. You need to be respectful to officers. You need to be respectful to others on the road and keeping your own safety in mind as well. Having a dash cam that records the audio or even records the interaction from inside the cabin of the car, it helps. And not to put a finger at cops, but as soon as you have a camera on them, they typically act a little bit more professional.